Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars ahead. His ship and 20 others moved slowly through space toward the edge of Zenthari territory. The alien empire controlled most of this part of the galaxy. For 3 months, his fleet had been flying at half speed, making their ships look old and weak. The aliens needed to think humans were not very smart and had bad technology. Jake looked at the screen showing his fleet. The ships looked rough and simple from the outside. Old metal plates covered advanced armor. Fake rust marks hid sensor arrays. Each ship captain knew their job was to act like Earth was a backward planet with primitive people. Captain Lisa Hayes contacted Jake from her ship, the UES Guardian. Her voice came through the old-style radio they used to fool the aliens. The real communication system stayed hidden and silent. Lisa told Jake that alien scout ships were watching them from far away. The scouts thought they were being sneaky, but human sensors could see them easily. On the alien flagship called Dominion's Edge, Commander Vex Ka studied the approaching human ships. The vessels looked crude and barely spaceworthy. Intelligence reports said these humans came from a small planet called Earth in an unimportant star system. The species had only recently learned to travel between stars. Their technology seemed hundreds of years behind the Empire. Vex Ka read the reports again. The human ships moved in simple patterns. They used basic fuel systems and slow engines. Their weapons appeared to be primitive missiles and simple energy guns. The commander felt confident that these creatures would surrender quickly when they saw the power of the Empire. Emperor Zeth Mor sat on his crystal throne in the capital city of the Empire. His advisors brought him news about the human fleet. The Emperor listened with little interest. Over the past 1,000 years, his forces had conquered 600 different species. Some fought back, but all eventually became slaves or died. These humans looked like they would be useful workers for the outer colonies. The Emperor asked his military chief, General Morthok, about the human threat level. The general laughed and said the humans had no real weapons and could not fight a space battle. Their ships would break apart if they tried to move too fast. The Emperor nodded and told his forces to prepare for another easy conquest. Back on the UES Liberty, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark monitored alien radio signals. The aliens spoke freely about their plans because they thought humans could not understand their language. Ryan had been learning their speech for months, using advanced translation computers. What he heard made him angry and worried. The aliens talked about taking human slaves. They wanted to strip mine Earth for its metals and rare elements. They planned to move all humans to prison colonies where they would work until they died. The aliens saw humans as animals that could be used and thrown away. Ryan sent this information to Admiral Morrison using secure channels. Jake Morrison read the intelligence reports and felt his jaw tighten. He had hoped the aliens might be reasonable, but clearly they only understood force. The Admiral sent coded messages to all his ship captains. The mission would continue as planned, but everyone needed to be ready for combat. Captain Danny Miller received the message on his ship, the UES Defiance. He looked at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes. They had trained for this mission for 2 years. Every person on every ship knew that Earth's future depended on them playing their roles perfectly. The aliens had to believe. Humans were weak until the moment they revealed the truth. Dr. Kevin Ross worked in the science section of the Liberty. His job was to study alien technology and find weaknesses. The Empire used the same basic designs for all their ships. They had grown lazy from centuries of easy victories. Kevin found several flaws in their shield systems and weapon targeting. He passed this information to the weapon officers on all human ships. The human fleet continued its slow approach toward the meeting point. Every ship captain maintained the act of being primitive and confused. They sent simple radio messages asking for directions. They pretended their navigation systems were broken. Some ships wobbled slightly as if their engines were unreliable. Captain Helen Foster commanded the UES Vengeance and watched the alien scouts following her ship. The aliens stayed far back, thinking they were invisible. Helen smiled, knowing that. Human stealth technology was recording everything about the alien vessels. When the time came, humans would know exactly how fast the enemy ships could move and how strong their weapons were. The stage was set for the greatest deception in human history. 20 human warships disguised as primitive vessels approached, an empire that had never lost a war. The aliens expected an easy victory and new slaves. Instead, they were about to learn that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. The galaxy was about to change forever, but nobody except the humans knew it. Yet, Dr. Keth Neal stood before the Imperial Council in the Great Hall of the Empire capital. The alien scientist had studied the human species for weeks using long-range scans and intercepted communications. Her report would help the Emperor decide how to deal with these newcomers from the planet Earth. The council members sat in their high chairs looking down at the scientist. Dr. Keth Neal activated a holographic display showing human ships and biological data. She explained that humans appeared to be a peaceful species with limited intelligence. Their ships showed no advanced weapon systems, and their technology was centuries behind Imperial standards. Emperor Zethmore listened to the report with growing boredom. The humans sounded like every other primitive species the Empire had encountered. They would resist at first, then accept their fate as workers and slaves. The Emperor asked if the humans had any useful traits. Dr. Keth Neal said they seemed physically strong and could work in harsh environments. General Morthak stepped forward to give his military assessment. He had commanded conquest fleets for 300 years and had never lost a battle. The general said the human ships were slow and poorly armed. A single Imperial battle cruiser could destroy their entire fleet in minutes. He recommended sending just 5 ships to force human surrender. Admiral Morrison received intelligence reports about Imperial fleet movements. The aliens were positioning their standard conquest force at the edge of the solar system. Ryan Clark had decoded their battle plans, and the aliens clearly expected an easy victory. Jake felt satisfied that the deception was working perfectly. Captain Greg Turner commanded the UES Defender and maintained radio contact with Earth. Admiral Patricia Wells coordinated the home defense from military headquarters. She confirmed that Phase 2 forces were ready to deploy if needed. The aliens had no idea that Earth had hundreds of advanced warships hidden throughout the solar system. The Imperial Conquest Fleet assembled near Jupiter. Commander Vex Ka now led 15 battle cruisers and support vessels. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The commander felt confident about the upcoming battle. His ships had never been defeated, and these primitive humans would be no different. Captain Lisa Hayes monitored the alien fleet from her position on the UES Guardian. The aliens moved in predictable patterns and used standard Imperial formations. Human tactical computers had studied these formations for years and knew exactly how to defeat them. Lisa smiled, knowing the aliens were walking into a trap. On the Imperial flagship, Commander Vex Ka studied the human vessels through his sensors. The ships looked even more primitive up close. Their metal hulls were rough and uneven. Their engines produced irregular energy signatures. The commander wondered how these vessels had even survived the journey from Earth without breaking apart. Dr. Amanda Price worked in the psychology section of the UES Liberty. Her job was to understand how the aliens thought and predict their actions. The Imperial communications showed typical conquest behavior. The aliens were arrogant and overconfident. They had never faced a real challenge and did not know how to deal with equals. The Empire began standard subjugation procedures. Imperial propaganda broadcasts started transmitting toward Earth, telling humans to prepare for their new role in the Galactic Order. The messages promised that humans would be treated well if they cooperated with Imperial authority. The aliens truly believed they were being generous. Captain Danny Miller intercepted the propaganda broadcasts and shared them with his crew. The Imperial messages were insulting and condescending. The aliens spoke to humans like they were children or animals. Danny felt his anger grow but kept his emotions under control. Soon, the aliens would learn to speak with more respect. Emperor Zethmore signed the Conquest Authorization documents. The paperwork was standard for adding new species to the Empire. Humans would be classified as Class 7 beings suitable for manual labor and simple tasks. The Emperor planned to use them in the dangerous mines of the Outer Rim, where other species had died in large numbers. General Morthak received his orders and began final preparations for the attack. His forces would disable the human ships and capture their crews alive. Living slaves were more valuable than dead ones. The general expected the entire operation to take less than 6 hours from start to finish. Captain Helen Foster received updates from Earth about Imperial troop movements. The aliens were also preparing ground forces to occupy human cities. They had detailed plans for controlling Earth's population and stealing its resources. The Empire had done this same thing to hundreds of other worlds over the centuries. Dr. Kevin Ross completed his analysis of Imperial technology. The alien ships were powerful, but used old designs that had not changed in decades. They relied on brute force rather than clever tactics. Kevin found several ways to exploit their weaknesses when the fighting started. The human fleet continued its slow approach while maintaining the appearance of primitive confusion. Ship captains sent worried radio messages asking what the alien ships wanted. They pretended to be scared and unprepared for conflict. Every transmission made the aliens more confident in their easy victory. Commander Vex Ka felt pleased with human behavior. The primitive species was acting exactly as expected. They were frightened and overwhelmed by Imperial power. The commander began planning victory celebrations for his crew. This conquest would add another successful campaign to his military record. The trap was almost ready. Human ships moved into their final positions while the aliens prepared for what they thought would be a simple battle. Both sides were confident, but only one side truly understood what was about to happen. The galaxy was hours away from witnessing the most shocking military reversal in its history. Ambassador Claire Johnson prepared for the most important meeting in human history. She stood in her quarters aboard the diplomatic shuttle reviewing her mission briefing one final time. Claire had to convince the Galactic Empire that humanity was primitive and harmless while gathering intelligence about their true intentions. The fate of Earth depended on her performance. The meeting would take place aboard Nexus Station, a neutral trading post at the edge of Imperial space. The station belonged to an independent species that stayed out of galactic politics. Imperial Delegate Quinsar had chosen this location to make humans feel safe while planning their conquest. Claire checked her appearance in the mirror. She wore simple clothes that looked handmade and primitive. Her jewelry was actually advanced recording equipment disguised as crude metal ornaments. Every word and gesture would be transmitted back to the human fleet using quantum communication channels. Imperial. Delegate Quinsar arrived at the station with great ceremony. His ship was a massive vessel designed to intimidate lesser species. The delegate brought 50 guards and advisors to show Imperial power. He carried standard conquest contracts that had been used to subjugate hundreds of other worlds. Captain Danny Miller piloted the human shuttle to the station docking bay. He wore the uniform of a simple transport pilot and acted nervous around the impressive Imperial technology. Danny had actually commanded warships for 15 years, but played his role perfectly. The Imperial guards looked at him with contempt and dismissed him as harmless. The meeting room was large and formal, with seats arranged to make the Imperials look dominant. Delegate Quinsar sat at the head of a long table, while Claire took a smaller chair designed to make her feel inferior. The delegate smiled coldly and began speaking in the Imperial language, expecting humans to use translation devices. Claire pretended to struggle with the alien language, while secretly understanding every word. She acted confused when the delegate used complex legal terms. Her apparent difficulty convinced the Imperials that humans had limited intelligence and no understanding of galactic law. Major Sam Collins led Claire's security detail. He and 5 other guards appeared to carry primitive weapons that looked like simple projectile guns. The Imperial guards laughed at the crude human equipment. They had no idea that each human weapon contained advanced plasma technology hidden inside antique-looking cases. Delegate Quinsar presented the Imperial offer with theatrical grandeur. He called it a protection agreement, but the terms were clearly a surrender document. Humans would become Imperial subjects, and Earth would be administered by alien governors. The delegate expected Claire to be overwhelmed by the generous offer. Claire read through the contract, slowly asking simple questions about basic terms. She acted like someone who had never seen advanced legal documents before. The delegate grew impatient with her apparent stupidity, but answered her questions with condescending explanations. The real shock came when Quinsar casually mentioned human relocation programs. He explained that most humans would be moved to labor colonies where they could be more useful to the Empire. Earth's resources would be harvested efficiently once the primitive population was removed to safer locations. Claire felt her blood turn cold, but kept her expression neutral. The delegate spoke about enslaving humanity like it was a minor administrative detail. He even suggested that humans should feel grateful for the opportunity to serve a superior civilization. The imperial arrogance was breathtaking and terrifying. Captain Greg Turner monitored the meeting from his ship, the UES Defender. Every word was being recorded and analyzed by human intelligence officers. The Imperial plans were even worse than expected. They intended to strip mine Earth completely and use humans as disposable workers in dangerous environments. Major Collins noticed the change in Claire's posture when slavery was mentioned. He began subtle preparations to defend the ambassador, if negotiations turned violent. His team had practiced emergency extraction procedures but hoped they would not be needed. Quinsar became more aggressive as the meeting continued. He demanded an immediate answer to the Imperial offer. When Claire asked for time to consult with Earth's government, the delegate became angry. He said primitive species should feel honored by Imperial attention and not waste time with pointless delays. Claire maintained her diplomatic composure while internally planning her response. She told the delegate that humans needed to follow their cultural decision-making processes. The primitive excuse bought valuable time for Admiral Morrison to position his fleet for the coming battle. The delegate finally issued an ultimatum. Humans had 24 hours to accept Imperial protection or face the consequences of defying galactic law. Quinsar made it clear that resistance would result in the complete destruction of human civilization. The Empire had never made empty threats. Claire agreed to carry the message back to Earth while secretly knowing that humanity's real response was already being prepared. She thanked the delegate for his patience with primitive human customs. Her humble act convinced the Imperials that humans would surrender without fighting. As the meeting ended, Imperial guards escorted Claire and her team back to their shuttle. The aliens spoke freely among themselves, assuming humans could not understand their language. They joked about how easy this conquest would be and made cruel comments about human intelligence. Captain Miller prepared the shuttle for departure while listening to Imperial communications. The aliens were already celebrating their victory and planning how to divide Earth's wealth. Their confidence would make the coming surprise even more devastating. Claire transmitted her final report to Admiral Morrison using encrypted quantum channels. The Imperials had revealed their complete plan and shown their true nature. There would be no peaceful solution to this crisis. Humanity would have to fight for its freedom. The shuttle returned to the human fleet carrying the most important intelligence in Earth's history. Ambassador Johnson had successfully maintained the deception while learning everything needed to defeat the Empire. The aliens still believed humans were primitive and helpless. In a few hours, they would discover how wrong they were about that assumption. Emperor Zethmore grew tired of waiting for the human response. 24 hours had passed since Delegate Quinsar delivered the Imperial ultimatum. The primitive species was taking too long to make a simple decision. The Emperor decided to demonstrate Imperial power to speed up human surrender. General Morthok received orders to begin the demonstration attack. His fleet would destroy one small human ship to show the consequences of resistance. The general selected his target and prepared his weapons. He expected the remaining humans to surrender immediately after seeing their primitive technology destroyed. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty watching the Imperial fleet move into attack formation. His tactical officers reported that alien weapons were powering up and targeting systems were active. Jake knew the moment of truth had arrived. The deception was about to end. Commander Vex Ka ordered his gunners to target the smallest human vessel. The ship called UES Pioneer looked especially primitive with rust marks and crude metal plating. The commander planned to vaporize it with a single shot from his main cannon. The demonstration would be quick and effective. Captain Rachel Bennett commanded the UES Pioneer and knew her ship had been selected as the target. She felt honored to be the first human vessel to reveal their true capabilities. Rachel ordered her crew to battle stations while maintaining the appearance of confusion and fear. The Imperial demonstration began with a massive energy blast aimed directly at the Pioneer. The beam should have destroyed the small human ship instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy blast struck an invisible barrier around the human vessel and scattered harmlessly into space. Commander Vex Ka stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His sensors showed that the human ship had deflected a weapon that could destroy a small moon. The primitive vessel appeared completely undamaged. The commander ordered his gunners to fire again with maximum power. The second blast was even stronger than the first. Every Imperial officer watched their screens expecting to see the human ship explode. Instead, the energy beam bounced off the invisible shield and reflected back toward the Imperial fleet. Two alien ships had to take evasive action to avoid being hit by their own weapon. Admiral Morrison smiled grimly and activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every human ship using quantum encryption that the aliens could not intercept. Jake gave the order that would change galactic history forever. He told his captains to drop the masquerade and show their true colors. The transformation began with the UES Liberty itself. Sections of the hull that had appeared, rough and primitive, suddenly shifted and realigned. Advanced armor plating emerged from hidden compartments. Weapon ports opened along the sides of the ship, revealing energy cannons that glowed with barely contained power. Captain Lisa Hayes activated the real systems aboard the UES Guardian. Her ship's engines came online with a deep humming sound that made the hull vibrate. The vessel that had been limping through space at half speed suddenly accelerated to velocities that should have been impossible for its apparent design. One by one, every human ship in the fleet underwent the same dramatic change. Hull plates retracted to reveal sleek surfaces underneath. Fake rust and damage marks disappeared as holographic projectors shut down. Primitive-looking engines were replaced by advanced propulsion systems that bent space around them. The Imperial fleet watched in growing horror as the human vessels revealed their true nature. Ships that had appeared barely capable of spaceflight now showed energy signatures that matched or exceeded Imperial battlecruisers. The primitive fleet had somehow become a force of advanced warships. Commander Vex Ka tried to understand what he was seeing. His instruments detected energy patterns that should not exist in human technology. The ships were using power sources that the Empire had only theorized about in scientific papers. The humans had technology that was decades ahead of Imperial capabilities. Captain Danny Miller commanded the UES Defiance as it completed its transformation. His ship had looked like a crude cargo hauler, but now revealed itself as a sleek warship with experimental weapons. Danny opened a communication channel to the Imperial fleet using their own advanced protocols. General Morthak received reports from his ship commanders that defied everything he knew about warfare. The human vessels were moving in formation patterns that violated basic physics. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space, using technology that made Imperial ships look primitive. Dr. Kevin Ross monitored the Imperial communications from his station aboard the Liberty. The alien officers were panicking as they tried to understand what they were facing. Their confidence had evaporated in minutes. The Empire was experiencing something it had never encountered before: complete technological. Surprise! Emperor Zeth Mor received the first reports from his fleet commanders. The words made no sense to him. Primitive humans could not possess advanced technology. There had to be some mistake or deception. The Emperor demanded better intelligence from his officers. Captain Helen Foster led her squadron through a tactical demonstration that left the Imperial fleet stunned. The human ships moved through space in ways that seemed to ignore gravity and momentum. They appeared and disappeared using what looked like dimensional manipulation technology. The most shocking revelation came when Admiral Morrison opened a direct communication channel to the Imperial flagship. His image appeared on Commander Vex Ka's main screen with perfect clarity. The human admiral no longer acted confused or primitive. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets for decades. Morrison told the Imperial commander that humanity had been watching galactic civilization for much longer than anyone suspected. Earth was not isolated or primitive. Humans had been studying alien technology and preparing for this moment. The Empire had walked into a carefully planned trap. Commander Vex Ka found his voice and demanded to know how humans had acquired such advanced technology. Morrison smiled coldly and explained that Earth had allies the Empire knew nothing about. The galaxy contained civilizations that had been hiding from Imperial expansion for centuries. The demonstration ended with the human fleet taking up battle formation around the Imperial ships. 20 vessels that had appeared helpless now surrounded. 15 Imperial battle cruisers with obvious tactical superiority. The hunters had become the hunted in a matter of minutes. General Morthak realized his fleet was completely outmatched. The humans had revealed capabilities that made Imperial weapons look like primitive clubs. For the first time in his military career, the general faced an enemy that was stronger, faster, and more advanced than his own forces. Admiral Morrison's image filled the main screen of every Imperial ship in the fleet. The human commander no longer showed any trace of primitive confusion or fear. His uniform was crisp and professional. His bearing demonstrated decades of military experience. The transformation was as dramatic as his fleet's technological revelation. Commander Vex Ka struggled to process what he was seeing. The primitive humans had somehow deceived the most powerful empire in galactic history. His tactical displays showed energy readings that made no sense. Human ships were generating power levels that should have required massive fusion reactors, but their vessels appeared no larger than before. Morrison began speaking in perfect Imperial language with no trace of accent or hesitation. He explained that humanity had been monitoring galactic communications for over 50 years. Earth's scientists had decoded Imperial technology and developed countermeasures for every weapon system in the alien arsenal. The revelation sent shock waves through the Imperial command structure. Emperor Zeth Mor received emergency reports from his fleet commanders describing impossible human capabilities. The primitive species had somehow acquired technology that surpassed Imperial science. The Emperor refused to believe the reports and demanded visual confirmation. Captain Rachel Bennett demonstrated human superiority by performing maneuvers that violated Imperial understanding of physics. Her ship, the UES Pioneer, moved through space in patterns that seemed to ignore momentum and gravity. The vessel appeared to phase partially out of normal dimensions while maintaining perfect control and stability. General Morthak watched his tactical computers struggle to track human ship movements. The vessels moved faster than Imperial sensors could follow. They appeared and disappeared using what looked like controlled dimensional rifts. The general had commanded fleets for 3 centuries, but had never seen anything like this. Dr. Amanda Price monitored Imperial communications from her position on the UES Liberty. The alien officers were experiencing something their empire had never faced before: technological inferiority. Their training had not prepared them for fighting an enemy with superior capabilities. Panic was spreading through their ranks. Morrison revealed the true extent of human preparation. Earth had been building advanced warships for decades while maintaining the appearance of primitive development. Hidden shipyards throughout the solar system had produced hundreds of vessels using technology that combined human innovation with knowledge gained from galactic observation. Commander Vex Ka tried to understand how humans had kept such massive construction projects secret. Imperial sensors should have detected the energy signatures of advanced shipbuilding. Morrison explained that human stealth technology had been hiding entire fleets from Imperial observation. The aliens had been blind to Earth's real capabilities. The most shocking revelation came when Morrison described the network of civilizations that had been secretly opposing Imperial expansion. Dozens of species had been pretending to be primitive, while developing advanced technology. The Empire had been surrounded by hidden enemies for centuries without knowing it. Captain Lisa Hayes led her squadron in a tactical demonstration that left Imperial officers speechless. The human ships created energy patterns that interfered with Imperial targeting systems. Their weapons fired beams that passed through Imperial shields as if they did not exist. The technological gap was becoming more obvious every minute. Emperor Zethmore finally accepted that the reports from his fleet were accurate. The humans possessed technology that made Imperial forces look primitive. The Emperor faced a crisis that threatened the foundation of his civilization. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire was militarily outmatched. Morrison delivered his ultimatum with calm authority. The Imperial fleet would stand down immediately and return to their own territory. Any attempt to attack human ships or Earth would result in the complete destruction of the alien forces. The Admiral's tone made it clear this was not a negotiation. General Morthak realized his fleet was trapped. Human ships surrounded his forces with obvious tactical superiority. His weapons could not penetrate their defenses, while their technology could easily destroy his vessels. The general faced the most humiliating defeat in Imperial military history. Dr. Kevin Ross completed his analysis of Imperial technology during the standoff. The alien ships used brute force approaches that wasted energy and created obvious weaknesses. Human technology was more efficient and elegant. The Empire had stagnated while other civilizations had continued advancing. Captain Danny Miller intercepted Imperial communications as panic spread through their command structure. Officers were reporting to their superiors that human technology appeared to be centuries ahead of Imperial capabilities. Some alien commanders were requesting immediate withdrawal to avoid total destruction. The Imperial fleet began showing signs of internal breakdown. Ships moved out of formation as individual captains tried to avoid being targeted by human weapons. The disciplined military force was becoming a collection of frightened vessels commanded by officers who no longer trusted their equipment or training. Morrison announced that the demonstration was over. Humanity had proven their technological superiority without firing a single aggressive shot. The Imperial fleet had exactly 1 hour to begin withdrawal from the solar system. Any delay would be considered an act of war against Earth and its allies. Commander Vex Ka found himself in an impossible position. His orders were to conquer the human species, but his fleet was completely outmatched. Retreating would end his military career, but attacking would result in the destruction of his ships and crews. The commander had never faced such a hopeless situation. The hour deadline created chaos in Imperial communications. Fleet commanders argued about their response while individual ship captains considered acting independently. The Empire had never dealt with military defeat and had no protocols for organized retreat from a superior enemy. Captain Helen Foster monitored Imperial fleet movements as some ships began moving away from Earth. The alien commanders were making individual decisions to withdraw rather than face destruction. The Imperial fleet was dissolving as a fighting force, without a single shot being fired in anger. Morrison's final message to the Imperial fleet was simple and direct. Humanity and its allies would no longer tolerate Imperial expansion and conquest. The galaxy's political structure was changing. The Empire could adapt to the new reality or face the consequences of continued aggression against advanced civilizations. The Great Deception was complete. Earth had revealed its true nature and shattered Imperial confidence in a single dramatic confrontation. The galaxy's most powerful empire had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive animals. The age of unopposed Imperial expansion was ending forever. Commander Vex Ka made the most difficult decision of his military career. His fleet was completely outmatched by human technology that seemed impossible by Imperial standards. The primitive species had revealed capabilities that made his battle. Cruisers looked like ancient relics. He ordered his ships to begin withdrawal from the solar system. The retreat was chaotic and disorganized. Imperial captains had never practiced withdrawing from a superior enemy because such situations had never existed before. Ships moved in different directions as individual commanders tried to avoid being targeted by human weapons. The disciplined fleet became a scattered collection of frightened vessels. Admiral Morrison watched the Imperial withdrawal with satisfaction. The deception had worked perfectly. Earth's true capabilities had been revealed at exactly the right moment to achieve maximum psychological impact. The aliens were fleeing without firing a single shot at human forces. Emperor Zeth Mor received reports from his retreating fleet with growing disbelief. The humans had demonstrated technology that violated Imperial understanding of physics. Ships that appeared primitive had revealed advanced systems that surpassed anything in the Imperial arsenal. The Emperor faced the first military defeat in his empire's 1,000-year history. Captain Rachel Bennett led her squadron in escort duty as Imperial ships limped away from Earth. The human vessels maintained perfect formation while the alien fleet struggled to organize their retreat. The contrast between human discipline and Imperial panic was stark and obvious. General Morthak tried to maintain some dignity during the withdrawal, but his fleet was falling apart. Ship captains were ignoring orders and making individual decisions about their escape routes. The general's authority was crumbling as officers realized their technological superiority was an illusion. Dr. Amanda Price analyzed Imperial communications during the retreat. The alien officers were experiencing complete breakdown of their worldview. They had believed their empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Learning that primitive humans possessed superior technology was destroying their confidence and morale. The Imperial retreat continued for hours as scattered ships fled toward the edge of the solar system. Human forces followed at a respectful distance, maintaining surveillance but not threatening the withdrawing aliens. Morrison wanted the Empire to spread word about human capabilities throughout their territory. Captain Lisa Hayes monitored long-range communications as news of the defeat reached Imperial space. Military commanders throughout the Empire were demanding explanations for the impossible loss. How could primitive humans have technology that exceeded Imperial science by centuries? The psychological impact of the defeat spread rapidly through Imperial society. Citizens who had believed in their technological superiority began questioning everything they had been told. If humans were more advanced than the Empire, what other species might be hiding their true capabilities? Commander Vex Ka transmitted his final report to Imperial headquarters as his flagship crossed the edge of human space. The document described technology that seemed like magic compared to Imperial capabilities. Human ships could manipulate space and time in ways that violated known physics. Emperor Zeth Mor convened an emergency session of the Imperial Council to address the crisis. Military advisors struggled to explain how their intelligence had been so completely wrong. The humans had somehow hidden massive technological development while appearing primitive and helpless. Captain Danny Miller received new orders from Earth as the Imperial fleet completed their retreat. Additional human ships were decloaking throughout the solar system, revealing the true size of Earth's defensive forces. Hundreds of advanced vessels had been hidden from Imperial observation. The revelation of Earth's hidden fleet sent fresh waves of panic through Imperial intelligence services. If humans could hide hundreds of warships, what other surprises might they have prepared? Imperial planners realized they knew nothing about human capabilities or intentions. Dr. Kevin Ross completed his analysis of Imperial technology captured during the encounter. The alien ships used crude approaches that wasted enormous amounts of energy. Their weapons and defenses had obvious flaws that human technology had been designed to exploit. General Morthak faced court-martial proceedings as news of the defeat reached Imperial military command. The general had lost an entire conquest fleet without inflicting any damage on the enemy. His military career was over, and his reputation was destroyed. Captain Helen Foster led reconnaissance missions that followed the retreating Imperial ships to the edge of their territory. Human stealth technology allowed close observation of Imperial bases and shipyards. The intelligence gathered would be crucial for future operations. The Imperial retreat triggered political upheaval throughout the Empire. Military commanders questioned their equipment and training, while civilian leaders demanded answers about intelligence failures. The Empire's confidence in its own superiority was shattered. Morrison opened diplomatic channels with other species that had been conquered by the Empire. The demonstration of human power encouraged resistance movements throughout Imperial territory. Dozens of subjugated worlds began planning rebellions against their alien occupiers. The news of Imperial defeat spread beyond human space to independent civilizations throughout the galaxy. Species that had feared Imperial expansion now saw hope for maintaining their freedom. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was destroyed in a single encounter. Emperor Zeth Mor realized his empire faced an existential crisis. The foundation of Imperial power had been technological superiority over other species. With that advantage gone, the Empire's control over hundreds of worlds was threatened. Captain Greg Turner coordinated with Earth's allies as other advanced civilizations began revealing themselves. The human victory had triggered a galaxy-wide transformation. Hidden alliances were emerging from shadows where they had operated for centuries. The Imperial fleet's shameful retreat became legend throughout the galaxy. The story of primitive humans humiliating the Empire's finest military forces inspired resistance movements on conquered worlds. The Empire's 1,000-year reign of terror was beginning to crumble. Commander Vex Ka submitted his resignation as his fleet reached Imperial space. The officer who had never lost a battle could not continue serving after such a complete defeat. His military career ended in disgrace and humiliation. The Great Deception had achieved more than anyone hoped. Earth had not only defended itself, but had triggered the beginning of the Empire's collapse. The galaxy was witnessing the end of an era and the birth of a new age where technological superiority belonged to those who had been underestimated. Admiral Morrison stood in the war room aboard the UES Liberty as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Imperial defeat at Earth had triggered responses from civilizations that had been hiding their true capabilities for centuries. Species the Empire considered primitive were revealing advanced technology and forming new alliances. Ambassador Claire Johnson opened diplomatic channels with the Kepler Confederation, a group of 12 star systems that had pretended to be separate primitive worlds. Their representative, Dr. Sarah Martinez, explained that they had been coordinating resistance against Imperial expansion for over 200 years while maintaining the illusion of technological backwardness. The Vegan Alliance emerged from the shadows next. Captain Mike Davis received their transmission revealing a network of 30 worlds that had been secretly developing advanced weapons and defensive systems. Their technology rivaled human capabilities and had been hidden using sophisticated holographic deception for generations. Emperor Zethmore watched his empire crumble as intelligence reports described impossible revelations throughout Imperial territory. Conquered species were throwing off their disguises and revealing military capabilities that exceeded Imperial forces. The primitive subjects were actually advanced civilizations that had been playing elaborate deception games. Dr. Kevin Ross analyzed the flood of new technological data as hidden civilizations shared their innovations with Earth. The galaxy contained dozens of species with advanced science that had been concealed from Imperial observation. Faster-than-light communication networks had been operating secretly for centuries. The Centauri Republic revealed itself as the most shocking example of concealed advancement. Captain Rachel Bennett established contact with their fleet admiral, who explained that they had been pretending to be Stone Age primitives while actually possessing technology that could manipulate time and space on a galactic scale. General Morthak received reports that his remaining forces were surrounded by enemies he had never known existed. Imperial garrisons throughout the galaxy found themselves facing rebellions supported by advanced technology that appeared from nowhere. The Empire's military position was hopeless. Captain Lisa Hayes coordinated with the Syrian Defense League as they revealed hidden shipyards and weapons platforms throughout their territory. The League had been building advanced warships for decades, while allowing Imperial forces to believe they controlled empty space. The political implications were staggering. Dr. Amanda Price calculated that over 60% of the galaxy's advanced civilizations had been hiding their true nature from the Empire. The Imperial map of primitive and conquered territories was completely wrong. Most of their subjects were actually technological equals or superiors. Captain Danny Miller established contact with the Phoenix Coalition, a group of former Imperial colonies that had secretly maintained their independence while pretending to submit to alien rule. Their underground networks had been sharing technology and planning coordinated resistance for generations. Emperor Zethmore convened emergency meetings with his remaining loyal forces, but the reports grew worse every hour. Imperial ships were being destroyed or captured throughout the galaxy as hidden enemies revealed themselves. The Empire was under attack from dozens of directions simultaneously. The Andromeda Research Institute emerged as perhaps the most advanced civilization of all. Captain Helen Foster received their transmission explaining that they had been studying Imperial technology for centuries and had developed countermeasures for every weapon system in the alien arsenal. Commander Vex Ka tried to organize defensive positions, but his intelligence was completely useless. Imperial charts showed primitive worlds that were actually advanced military bases. Trade routes passed through territories controlled by sophisticated civilizations that had been pretending to be harmless farmers or miners. Dr. Martinez from the Kepler Confederation explained to Ambassador Johnson that the Hidden Alliance network had been waiting for a catalyst to reveal itself. Earth's successful deception had provided the perfect moment to emerge from the shadows and challenge Imperial dominance. The scale of the deception was breathtaking. Captain Greg Turner received reports that some civilizations had been hiding their advancement for over 1,000 years. They had watched the Empire grow and expand while secretly preparing for the day they would reveal their true power. Admiral Morrison realized that Earth had stumbled into a galactic conspiracy that dwarfed anything human planners had imagined. The hidden civilizations had been coordinating their deceptions and sharing technology, while the Empire remained completely ignorant of their activities. The Imperial communication networks were overloaded with panic reports from throughout their territory. Military commanders described facing enemies with impossible technology. Weapons that should not exist were destroying Imperial forces with ease. The Empire's technological advantage had been an illusion for centuries. Captain Rachel Bennett established contact with the Tau Ceti Collective, which revealed that they had been using advanced AI systems to coordinate deception activities across multiple star systems. Their artificial intelligence had been predicting Imperial movements and preparing countermeasures for decades. Emperor Zeth Mor faced the complete collapse of his empire's foundation. The species he had considered primitive, subjects were actually advanced civilizations that had been allowing imperial control while secretly preparing for rebellion. The empire had been surrounded by enemies for centuries without knowing it. The hidden networks began coordinating their military operations. Captain Mike Davis received tactical updates as dozens of civilizations launched simultaneous attacks against imperial positions. The empire faced enemies on hundreds of fronts using technology they could not understand or counter. Dr. Kevin Ross discovered that some of the hidden civilizations possessed technology that was centuries ahead of even human capabilities. Earth had revealed itself to a galaxy full of advanced species that had been hiding their true nature from imperial observation. The revelation transformed galactic politics overnight. Admiral Morrison found himself coordinating with allies he had never known existed. The primitive galaxy, mapped by imperial intelligence, was actually a sophisticated network of advanced civilizations that had been preparing for this moment for generations. Captain Lisa Hayes received reports that imperial forces were surrendering throughout the galaxy as they realized the hopelessness of their situation. The empire that had dominated galactic civilization for 1,000 years was collapsing in a matter of days. The Hidden Alliance had achieved the greatest deception in galactic history. Dozens of advanced civilizations had convinced the empire that they were primitive while secretly preparing for coordinated resistance. Earth's revelation had triggered the emergence of a galaxy-spanning network that made imperial forces look like primitive barbarians. Admiral Morrison stood before the Galactic Assembly as representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered for the first free council meeting in over 1,000 years. The Great Hall on Nexus Station had been expanded to accommodate delegates from species that had emerged from hiding after the Empire's collapse. Earth's revelation had triggered the greatest political transformation in galactic history. Emperor Zeth Mor sat in chains as the Assembly voted on charges against the Imperial leadership. The former ruler of the galaxy faced trial for crimes against hundreds of species. His empire had been reduced to a handful of core worlds, defended by outdated technology and broken morale. Ambassador Claire Johnson addressed the Assembly about the new principles that would govern galactic civilization. No single species would be allowed to dominate others through technological superiority or military force. The Hidden Alliance had learned from the Empire's mistakes and designed safeguards against future tyranny. Captain Rachel Bennett reported that Imperial military forces throughout the galaxy had either surrendered or been destroyed by the coordinated resistance. The 1,000-year reign of terror was officially over. Free civilizations were reclaiming worlds that had been enslaved for generations. Dr. Kevin Ross presented his analysis of imperial technology to the Assembly's Science Council. The alien weapons and ships were primitive compared to the innovations developed by hidden civilizations. The Empire had stagnated while their subjects had continued advancing in secret. The Kepler Confederation's representative, Dr. Sarah Martinez, explained how the Hidden Alliance had coordinated their deceptions for centuries. Advanced communication networks had allowed real-time coordination between civilizations separated by thousands of light years. The Empire had never detected these quantum channels. Captain Lisa Hayes coordinated the establishment of new trade routes between liberated worlds. The galaxy's economy was being rebuilt on principles of cooperation rather than exploitation. Species that had been forced to provide resources to the Empire could now develop their own prosperity. General Morthok faced war crimes tribunals for his role in Imperial conquest campaigns. The military commander, who had never lost a battle until facing humans, would spend the rest of his life in prison. His defeat at Earth had triggered the collapse that ended his empire. The Andromeda Research Institute shared their advanced technology with the Assembly. Their innovations in dimensional manipulation and energy generation would help rebuild civilizations damaged by centuries of imperial rule. The galaxy's knowledge base was expanding rapidly as hidden discoveries were revealed. Captain Danny Miller led peacekeeping forces that maintained order during the transition period. Some Imperial loyalists attempted terrorist attacks against liberated worlds, but the combined fleets of the Alliance provided security throughout the galaxy. The new order was being protected by overwhelming technological superiority. Dr. Amanda Price studied the psychological impact of the Empire's fall on its former subjects. Many species were struggling to adjust to freedom after generations of oppression. Rehabilitation programs were helping former slaves rediscover their cultural identities and technological capabilities. The Phoenix Coalition established new governments on worlds that had been under imperial control. Democratic principles were being introduced to civilizations that had forgotten what self-determination meant. The transition was difficult, but former subjects were eager to reclaim their independence. Admiral Morrison addressed concerns about Earth's role in the new galactic order. Humanity would not replace the Empire as a dominant species. The Alliance was committed to equality and cooperation between all civilizations, regardless of their technological capabilities or military strength. Captain Helen Foster supervised the dismantling of Imperial weapons platforms and military bases. The galaxy's most dangerous weapons were being destroyed or converted to peaceful purposes. The technology of oppression was being replaced by tools of cooperation and exploration. The Centauri Republic revealed the true scope of their hidden civilization. Their territory included hundreds of star systems that had appeared empty on Imperial charts. Advanced stealth technology had concealed entire worlds from Imperial observation for over 500 years. Emperor Zethmore's trial became a symbol of justice for the galaxy's oppressed peoples. Witnesses from dozens of worlds testified about Imperial crimes against their civilizations. The former emperor faced evidence of genocide, slavery, and cultural destruction spanning centuries. Captain Greg Turner established communication networks that connected liberated worlds throughout the galaxy. The new systems used quantum encryption and dimensional routing that made interception impossible. Free civilizations could coordinate their activities without fear of surveillance. The Tau Ceti Collective shared their artificial intelligence technology with the Assembly. Their AI systems had been predicting Imperial movements and coordinating resistance activities for decades. The same technology would help manage the complex logistics of galactic reconstruction. Dr. Martinez announced the formation of the Galactic Defense Alliance. The new organization would protect member civilizations from future threats while respecting their sovereignty and independence. Earth's fleet would serve as one component of a vast multinational force. The hidden civilizations began revealing the full extent of their technological capabilities. Innovations in faster-than-light travel, dimensional engineering, and energy manipulation promised to transform galactic civilization. The Empire's primitive technology was being replaced by advances that seemed like magic. Admiral Morrison reflected on how Earth's deception had triggered changes beyond anything human planners had imagined. Humanity had intended to protect itself from imperial conquest, but had instead catalyzed the liberation of the entire galaxy. The primitive species had become the catalyst for a new age. The Assembly voted to establish permanent peacekeeping forces and democratic institutions throughout liberated space. The galaxy would be governed by cooperation and consensus rather than conquest and oppression. The 1,000-year nightmare was ending, and a new era of freedom was beginning. Captain Rachel Bennett received reports that the last Imperial holdouts had surrendered or been defeated. The galaxy was finally free from the empire that had dominated it for so long. Former subjects were celebrating their liberation while beginning the long process of rebuilding their civilizations. The new galactic order represented everything the Empire had tried to prevent. Free civilizations were cooperating and sharing technology, Scientific advancement was accelerating as hidden innovations were revealed. The galaxy was entering an age of unprecedented prosperity and exploration. Earth's great deception had achieved far more than anyone had dreamed possible. Humanity had not only saved itself, but had triggered the liberation of hundreds of civilizations. The species that had appeared primitive and helpless had become the catalyst for galactic transformation that would echo through history for thousands of years.